Alright, so now we're going to talk about RoboCop's normals and strings. This is going to be a pretty in-depth video, because, obviously, most Mortal Kombat characters, there's a ton of stuff to cover, so let's go ahead and get right on into it. So, when I'm picking up a character in Mortal Kombat 11, they've got this tag system that I love, where you can pick a move, you press triangle on it, or whatever your button for triangle is, and it'll tag it right there. So, don't move, creep is my 1-2-1, right? So, when I'm learning a character, to come in. Let me go ahead and clear that out. So this looks like a ton of information, right? But each of these, most of these are partial strings. So like for instance, this protect the innocent is toward 322. This uphold the law is toward 322-111, right? So this is the full string. This is a partial string. So I'm going to go through and I'm only going to tag the full strings, all right? So it looks like a ton, but we got full string, 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 full string. All right, so out of all of this stuff, really only 9 of these are full strings, okay? So great. So that looks like a lot of stuff to cover, but again, we're going to go ahead and reduce it even further. So for instance, RoboCop's 1-2-1 string is probably his most important string, all right? And we're really going to look at it in depth here in a minute. But if we look at it, it's an 8-frame high starter, all right? So 8-frame high starter leads into probably his best string, right? XYA, on the other hand, it can't be canceled. It's got a gap, so like if the opponent reads you're gonna do that, then they're gonna full combo punish you. And that last hit is low, but RoboCop has no overhead options that would hit at that point. So a savvy opponent is never gonna get hit by that. Like, that's not a mix-up, even though it's a low hit, just because you're always gonna block low against RoboCop. You got hop attack and you got forward 2-1-2. Those are your only overheads, and even only that final hit is an overhead, right? So against RoboCop, your opponent's gonna be blocking low. So that's useless. That is a useless string. I've seen people get hit by it, but mostly because they don't know the matchup, right? So if I'm ever in a situation where I can't hit with standing 1, 100% of the time I'm going to want to do 1-2-1 and not 1-2-3. Just utterly useless string, right? So I'm going to go in. I'm going to take that useless string, and I'm just going to untag it. Bam. It is gone. All right. So now let's go ahead and keep reducing this even further. So now we got this back 1-2. Now, this is a weird move. You've got back 1-2 where you hold back, you got back 1-2 where you don't hold a direction, and then one where you hold forward, right? So it's kind of a cool little move. Honestly, I don't hate the move, but it's not. I've yet to find a use for it, right? So it's a 12-frame mid, which is decent, but there's a gap there. So if they read that, they can flawless block the missile or the bomb and punish you. You can't cancel it into anything, so the maximum amount of damage you're going to get is 77, right? And like I like that knockdown, but that's about it. Like I have yet to find a really good reason for this string. Hopefully someone one day will find some sort of weird specific thing you can do with it that's really good. Until that day comes, untag, untag. All right. So getting it sorted down. So next up is this YYA string, 2-2-3. Okay. So again, that low hit doesn't matter. Like you're never gonna hit a savvy opponent with that. They will always block it. I think there's even a gap there. I don't use the string because it's really bad, right? So again, anytime I'm in a situation where I can hit with a high starter like that, I want to use 1-2-1. It's an 8-frame, all right? This Y, this standing 2, is a 9-frame high, and like, what are you supposed to do with that, right? So, again, maybe someone will find a use for that string. I have yet to find it, so untag. All right. And now, luckily, the rest of these are valid strings, all right? So let's just go ahead and start from the top. So we got 1-2-1. All right, this is probably, again, your most important string, because if we look at the frame data in the bottom left, we can see it has a hit advantage of 22, and the startup is only 8. Which means that 100% of the time, it loops into itself, all right? And you may be a bit worried about flawless block punishes, but luckily, because it has 22 frames of hit advantage and it starts up in 8 frames, you have quite a few frames to vary your timing. So you can do 1-2-1 directly into another one. You can do 1-2-1, wait a sec, and do another one, right? So you can kind of vary your timing a bit to prevent flawless block punishes. So 1-2-1 is really good for a stagger that way. Standing 1 itself is -5, but it's still a really good stagger because, again, your opponent is going to be expecting that 1-2-1, right? One thing I do want to mention before I forget is that second hit the mid hit will still whiff on some tiny hurt boxes, like Johnny Cage. If Johnny Cage is blocking, crouch blocking, a lot of times that second hit will whiff, so do be careful with that. But otherwise, second, third hits are both mid, and you can cancel at any point into a special. You can stagger, right? So it's just an excellent stagger string. So 1, down 1, throw, 1, throw, 1, 2, throw, 1, 2, 1, down 1, 1, 2, 1 into a special, right? So you get the idea. And that 1, 2, 1 into a special is really where a lot of your mix-up potential is going to come from, because again, 1, 2, 1 is only -5, and your startup on your down 1 is only 7, right? So like that's a pretty good stagger. Once you get your opponent to where they know they have to respect the follow-up there, then you can really start kind of catching them with that. And there is a tick throw if you have the command grab. You set him to stance hold, right? So really solid mix up there, especially if you have flamethrower and command grab equipped in your loadout. Then you can do some really cool stuff. Like you basically just hit confirm every time you 1, 2, 1. If it hits, you do flamethrower. If it misses, you can do command grab, or you can just let it in and be safe, right? So amazing string. And that's really all there is to 1, 2, 1. Really, I mean, it's a pretty standard 3-hit, almost identical to Terminator's 1, 2, 1. So you get the idea. I will say. So on hit, standing 1 is only +1, but still, just like on block, most people are going to get opened up after that, especially if you have the command grabs. Like standing 1 and the command grab is really good, right? 1, 2 on hit knocks them back a little far. It's +11, and they're still within forward 3 range. Like they still have to respect it, but just know you can't do. If you do 1, 2 and try to go for a command grab afterwards, or even a normal grab, it's gonna whiff if the 1, 2 hits, right? So same with 1, 2, 1, but there's so much hit advantage. Again, you're +22 right there. So 1, 2, 1 does knock back, but you have enough time to dash in and do whatever you need to do, right? All right. So next up is going to be your forward 2, 1, 2 string. So just forward 2 alone is a really good poke because you've got that nice forward movement. It's a nice low hitting mid. Like I don't think it whiffs on any low hit boxes, but I could be wrong on there. But you can combine it with your forward dash to really, I mean, you've got almost like Raiden's forward 4, right? Just fine forward into that forward 2. You can really do that with any of his, forward into that, any of that stuff. And again, if you have the command grab, that dash becomes really dangerous because you can cancel into that, right? All right, so forward 2, if we look, it's +15 on hit, and it leaves you close enough to connect with the command grab or a normal grab if you don't have that. So that is a really good poke. It's also, let's take a look at it. So -7 on block, but almost no one, again, that's safe, but very few people poke afterward. They're almost always waiting for that second hit there. All right. And so if we block, usually you can kind of get that kind of game going, right? Where you're coming in, you're doing the 1 hit into either a backdash or the 1 hit into a low, or if it hits, you can go into the command grab. Even if it's blocked, if your opponent's not reacting properly, you can go into a grab or a command grab. So forward 2 is an excellent poke. You want to be using that a lot just because it's so safe, and on hit, it's a complete guess. Now, am I going to do 1, 2, 1? Am I going to do another forward 2? Am I going to do a command grab? I'm going to do a back 2. And that's after every forward 2, right? So that's really good. So the forward 2, 1 is still good, but look at that. It's only +7, and with hit back, you really can't safely follow up on it. So usually if that was to hit, I would probably back off and get to zoning, right? Here we go. All right, and you see it's safe at -5, but a lot of people poke after that because it's such a popular stagger. Like so many RoboCop players stagger this string that yeah, people are just used to it. I will say it's not a great stagger string because the block stun is so long on the opponent and RoboCop. It is kind of easy to tell that you're not going into that third hit, right? So it's not a terrible stagger, but a lot of people will catch you trying to stagger it. All right, and then of course the full string is the forward 2 1 2. There is a gap before the final hit, so um, there we go. So yeah, use that against a savvy opponent, you're gonna get punished. And then of course you get a fatal blow or crushing blow if it hits overhead for a nice little 27% punish there. So or not if it hits over, if it punishes an attack. Sorry, the third hit is overhead. If it punishes an attack, you'll get the crushing blow, and that does include if I set Terminator here to reversal. You see he's trying to down one, and it triggers the crushing blow there. So as long as you haven't triggered your crushing blow, I'd say it's a little safer to go for these staggers because your opponent will be too afraid of triggering that. Right? Once you trigger the crushing blow, then it's not a it's not a really great string. Just cause like look at that, the damage. How much am I doing? 7. Right. So they can kind of disrespect your forward 2 1 2 after you've used the KV. So do be aware of that. That as long as you haven't used that crushing blow, your forward 2-1 is a much stronger string. All right, so now let's go ahead and talk about his back 3-2. All right, which is this weird little string right here. So at first glance, it doesn't seem that great on hit. We're doing, almost 12% damage. It's an 18 frame low. So if we look at his back 3. It's his only low starter, right? So he has other low moves, sweep and his down 4, but this is the only low attack that's going to start something, right? So you can really turn. Oh, let me turn off these crushing blows. All right. So you can turn basically, your attacks into low attacks by canceling into them from this low starter. That's about all there is to it. In the corner, it's a decent stagger. Because here, mid-screen, you're plus 13, but it just pushes them back a little far. So even outside of your forward 3-2 range. So again, like you can chase someone down, it's not terrible. But it's much better in the corner because you see you're plus 13 and they're not far away. They stay right next to you, right? So it's a good stagger, and again, the range is almost identical to your down 4 and your sweep. You can actually see the sweep is, I think, slightly further than down 4. And back 3 almost gets there, right? So whenever you hit with this, you get that nice knockdown. And we're looking at 31 hit advantage, so roughly half a second to get in and get whatever you want started, right? And most of your stuff is going to whiff afterward. You can get a forward 2 after a full dash. But usually you just get one safe dash, and then you're kind of, see where you're at, see what you want to do. So after every back 3-2, you get a free dash in, if you want it. You can also meaty into your low shot, right? So they'll wake up into it, and they have to deal with it. You can also try setting down, a trap or something like that. So it gives you a little bit of time to work with. Overall, I don't use this as much as some of my other tools. But you can really catch an opponent off guard with this back 3-2. Like it can be a very effective string. And even mid-screen, I've honestly I've frustrated some people by going from, zone them for a good 30 seconds or so. They start getting half screen, and then you come in, and now you're just doing this mess. And you can kind of feint that way because the hitbox on it moves so far. Look at that, and it's 7% damage, 7% med. So really, if I'm back here, you can kind of feint people out that way. So I should have mentioned that when I was initially talking about it, but yeah. So that's just, I don't know. It's a solid string. All right. So now we're going to talk about his forward 3-2, or the 4-3-2-2-1-1-1 string. All right. So this is probably his second most important string. It's probably a toss-up between the forward 2-1-2 and this. But yeah. So 1-2-1 definitely most important, and then This one you're going to be using a ton. So 4, 3, 2. So this is a really weird string because only the first 2 hits can be special canceled. So for instance, if you have flamethrower, then a really good punish is 4, 3, 2 flamethrower. And right now I'm using low shot, which you can still see still works. But yeah, flamethrower is really good for this move because it's so hit confirmable. You see, it's a neat hit, cancel. If it's not, then you're totally safe, right? So it's a 10 frame mid, making it an excellent Punisher. Jackie is in your face doing cancels and everything, and this is going to be your way to stop her pressure, right? Especially if you block like a down 1, it's usually better to do forward 3 than it is to use your own down 1, right? So forward 3 is only +3 on hit, but that's still plenty of time to get out a command grab or anything else that you want to do, right? So forward 3 staggers are pretty good. It's -5 on block, but very few people, at least when you first start fighting them, react to that stagger. Usually they start to catch on. Eventually it gets a little easier to react to. But most people are going to be poking after that move, all right? And so why is that? Well, these are both cancelable, but that's not. If I do forward 3, 2, 2, I get that second hit there, and that can be a good little mix between am I going to stagger forward 3 or forward 3, 2, 2, right? So that's a good little mix there. But you see, 4, 3, 2 is -6. 4, 3, 2, 2 is -10. That's not safe, right? So anytime I do that, I'm -10. I can't cancel into a special, so I can't make it safer. I can't add any sort of mix on there. The only kind of mix I can do is to finish the string. Bam, 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 right? So if they block that, you're totally safe. You're -9, they're all the way back there, right? So if they block it, you're great. The only problem is that look at these hit levels. We got mid, second hit is mid, third hit is mid, bam, 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 and then 3 high attacks, right? So because of that, because the opponent knows that you can't cancel that hit into a special, and they know the only thing you can cancel it into is those high hits, then a savvy opponent, every time they block that, they're going to poke low. And because you're -10, they're going to hit you, right? So it's a really dangerous move to throw out. You got to do it. You got to take risks with RoboCop, and you will catch a lot of people that block that and then get hit by the gunshots, right? They just don't expect it. But again, the risk reward is way out of whack, because if you do hit with it, the entire string is doing 15%. Let's see. Yeah, so if they block all that and eat those bullets, they're taking 6% damage, but you're risking a full combo punish every time you do it, right? So don't be afraid to do it, but do be aware of those risks, okay? The only other thing really, other than like the staggers, so again, this is +3, so you could do that into command grab if you got your timing down. Same with this, that's +8, so you got that into command grab or normal grab. Down 1, do whatever you want afterwards. So good staggers on hit, and it also makes a surprisingly good anti-air. If I come on, there we go. Jump forward, bam. So you see that hitbox actually hits. It's got like a force field in front of RoboCop's head. You can cancel into that. Get a nice little 28% combo, 30%. Hey, there you go. So that's one of the ways that you can get some decent damage. And here's meterless, 28% meterless. That's pretty good, right? So that's probably going to be your best anti-air, especially because it's so fast at 10 frames, and it's so easy to confirm into your low shot, or your high shot, or your amplified high shot to get a full combo. And that's going to be more damage than you're getting anywhere else for the most part. All right. So moving right along to Directive Classified, which is this guy right here. So this is your only string launcher, right? So you got back 2, which will launch. We'll cover that here in a sec. This is your only string that's going to launch. Almost 24% damage for 1 bar mid-screen is not spectacular, especially off an 18-frame mid. The other issue with it, let's do that. Let's see if that works. There we go. So the second hit is a high, which means if the opponent knows RoboCop, they can literally just wait for you to do that and then down 2 punish for a 50 to 60% of your health. So every time you try to launch your opponent with this move, you are risking that nonsense. So be really careful. If your opponent does block it, then it's totally safe. You're -5 with a tiny bit of pushback. So if your opponent's blocking it, you're pretty good, even though it becomes their turn. But your savvy opponent is going to punish it, so be really careful throwing this out there. Usually, if you are going to be throwing it out there, you want to at least train them to expect something besides that high attack, right? And that's actually surprisingly safe. You know, we're looking at -14 with this pushback. Some advancing specials could punish that. You know, Sub-Zero Slide, I think, can. Kung Lu, Dragon Kick might be able to. But against some characters, that's a very difficult thing to deal with. Same with down 4 into low shot. We'll cover all that when we talk about low shot later. Or low auto 9 is the correct term. But yeah, so that's how you can kind of train your opponent to respect your forward 4, and then you can start trying to go for your combo damage that way. But again, just remember, you know, there's one bar, I'm only doing 24%, but if they read correctly, they can down to crushing blow you, and you're going to get blown up hard. So just be really careful there. Alright, so now we're going to take a look at his normal buttons that aren't a part of any of his strings, right? So strings are like 1, 2, 1, that kind of thing. These are all just like the one-hit normals, right? So first up is his down 1. He has a pretty solid down 1, 7 frames, decent range. But you can see every time you hit, it leaves you +14, which means it's going to jail into 1, 2, 1. It's going to jail into forward 3, 2. It's going to jail into everything you need. And if you have the command grab equipped like usual, you know, it's just a guess. Every time you hit with that down 1, now your opponent has to guess, do I jump or not? If they jump and you read it, you can hit them with the back 2 and get some good damage that way. If they don't jump, they're going to eat that command grab, right? And even the back 2 is safe at -5, so as long as they don't down to you, then you're pretty good there. So excellent down 1. Like your goal is to try to hit with that down 1 to get that frame advantage, and then make it a guessing game for your opponent. And that's how you open them up, right? So solid down 1. Your down 3, so there's my down 1 range, there's my down 3 range. So not quite double the range, but pretty close. You get that same 14 advantage, and you're if you hit for max range, you're going to be outside range of standing 1 and down 1, but you can still hit with a forward 3, right? And because you got that 14 and that's a low, the 14 hit advantage, that really opens up your hop game, because RoboCop doesn't have an overhead starter. So anytime you hit with your down 1 or your down 3, though it works better with down 3 because it is a low, you can get your hop game going to start opening people up. And again, you know, hop, grab, do that, hop, sweep, low starter, right? So you have all these different kinds of options you can kind of do once you get that frame advantage going from your down 3 and your down 1. So those are both excellent, excellent tools. Your down 4 is one of your most important buttons in a lot of matchups, right? You've got this insane range and this insane disjointed hitbox. So it's really good on wake up. Like, you can stand outside of your opponent's range of their wake up attacks and do something like down 4 into that or whatever. If they try to jump, it'll catch them for a full combo into the guns. And canceling it, even like not on wake up, just like as a general game plan, canceling down 4 into specials, either low shot or flamethrower, or really anything else, while risky, can be really difficult for some characters to deal with. This is another one. I think this is even safe against Sub-Zero Slide from max range. So if I'm here and I'm canceling that into my gunshot there's very few characters. Like, I think Nightwolf can punish it with his shoulder charge. You know, that's about it. So really, mostly safe and really hard for some characters to deal with. And then, but what makes it so good is that you hit with that a few times, so now you can start doing the single hits with your down 4 and getting some space, or coming in for other stuff, right? So the down 4 is +15 on hit, which is only 1 more than the 14 provided by down 3 and down 1, but that's still enough time every time you hit with it, usually, except for like very max range might not be far enough. Here we go. But yeah, so you basically get a free dash every time you do it, and as long as you're not at the very tippy tip range, see, like my forward 3 is whiffing there, but if I'm slightly closer, well, still too far, but you get the idea. So +15, and anything closer than max range, they're going to have to guess between that and a grab or a command grab or anything like that, right? And it's really good, again, if you can start mixing in, canceling it into some of these safe-ish specials that you have. You can make it really hard for a lot of characters to figure out, like, how do I get past this range, right? Like, once they get into that range, it becomes a total mix fest with command grabs and all this other stuff, right? So that's what your down 4 does for you. All right, so those are your low pokes. You're down 1, down 3, down 4. Hopefully you see the different uses for each of those. Usually if you're adjacent to your opponent, then you want to go with your 7 frame down 1. Down 3, much better button, but it is 10 frames, so it'll get beaten out by some things that a down 1 will beat, right? So you just got to use your best judgment there. Back 2 is your only other launcher. So you have your string launcher and forward 4-2, right? Which ends in a high. Unfortunately, this is a high as well. So all of your launchers are highs. I have played 2-hour sets against people and never launched them once, other than down to crushing blows, right? So like RoboCop is just not a launching character. So this move, it is safe at -5, but again, because it's a non-confirmable high, if the opponent is crouching, they can down 2 you. They can, it's 16 frames. So it's mildly reactable, like they can kind of see you going for it, and some players will be able to react to that. So you're not going to want to throw this move out in the neutral. What it's really used for is as a punisher. So for instance, so this is 16 frames, so you want to use it against anything that's more unsafe than 16 frames. Like Sub-Zero's slide is a great example, a lot of fatal blows, because the range is surprisingly good. It doesn't look like it goes very far, but it'll punish a lot of stuff, right? And again, that's going to be how you get your biggest amount of damage. You don't suck like I do. What? Look at that. Yeah, look at my input log. I'm pressing back 2, down back 1, and it's just not coming out. Maybe doing it too early or something. But there you go. So anyway, so 29% damage, which is about as much as RoboCop can get mid-screen. All right. And that's really all there is to back 2. Again, don't really throw it out in the neutral too much unless you make a hard read. Maybe you've hit your opponent with a bunch of command grabs in a row and they're getting really, really jumpy, and now you've hit them with like a 1-2-1 and they keep jumping after that last hit. Beyond a shadow of a doubt that they're going to jump. Then go for it, right? And that's where your mix is. If you take the command grab, it's between command grab and back 2. Total guess. Alright, but yeah, that's really all there is to back 2. Your uppercut is lackluster, to say the least. It's very fast at 8 frames, but it has, like, 0 horizontal hitbox. Look at that. And even the vertical hitbox, it looks decent, but it'll whiff so often. If you're against a Jackie Briggs and she neutral jumps next to you and you down 2, there's a good chance that down 2 is going to whiff and you're going to get full combo punish. So it's pretty awful. It's not a good down 2. If your anti-airs aren't on, if you're not good at anti-airing, again, I recommend using forward 3 to anti-air, even though it doesn't look like a good one. He's got like an invisible field in front of his head where it'll still hit the opponent, right? So that's going to be your best anti-air anyway. You can down 2 if you're not comfortable with that. But forward 3 is just much better than down 2. All right, moving on to heavy heal. Actually, let's talk about his sweep first, his back 4. All right, so one of the best sweeps in the game. The only downside is, you saw there, it does, the range is a little weird. So it's 2 shots, and sometimes the first shot will hit and they'll do 5% and they'll fall down. Sometimes only the second shot will hit and they'll like stagger backwards and you'll be at -1 or 2. So it's a little weird that way, but otherwise it's pretty amazing button. So if we look at RoboCop, look at his feet when I use it. Look how he plants that front foot. He doesn't move at all, except for, when I press back to do the back 4, he goes back a tiny bit. But for the most part, he stays put and just puts this giant disjointed hitbox on the ground there. And the hitbox, actually, it can anti-air people too. It's got a pretty weird, pretty wonky hurtbox. Or hitbox, sorry. But yeah, and so because it's disjointed, this can be another really good way to bully people on Oki. If they don't, of course, Shao Kahn, you're not going to be bullying. Terminator, you're not going to be bullying. But a few of these people that don't have great wake-ups, or at least don't have wake-ups that outrange his back 3, every time you knock them down, they're gonna guess between that, between a dash up, grab, dash up back 2, right? Which I wouldn't recommend too often. But yeah, so your sweep is, I mean, just really, really solid because it's very safe. Like, you're just not putting yourself out there. You're letting your bullets kind of stay out there for you, right? It's also got a lot of active frames. You see 8 active frames, so it's a really good meaty to just like throw down that hitbox on an opponent as they're waking up, and they have to deal with it, right? So just an excellent, excellent back 4. So the only other one is his standing 4. This one is actually a decent anti-air too. Like, it's an 11 frame startup, and it has a really significant hitbox. I keep getting this mixed up. Really significant hitbox on it, right? So standing 4. It's +6 on block, but with way too much pushback to really do much with that, right? And so in the corner here, I don't know why I'm not getting pushback. There we go. So usually if you kick someone, it pushes you way far back. Actually, I don't know why it wasn't doing it for a second there. Just MK11 inconsistencies, I guess. But yeah, so +6, but not really much you can do with that. It is special cancelable, which is why it's kind of good as an anti-air, because you can... like, let's say my opponent jumps in on me, you can do something like that for an easy 20% punish, right? And it's got, I mean, a really solid, you just press it and it's gonna hit. Like, it has a really good hitbox. The other thing about it, let's see. There we go. So by default, you got this crowd control cannon, and this is kind of a, I don't use this, but I have seen some people mention it, so I will mention it. That it does jail into your Cobra assault cannon. So if you do that and that, they have to block the cannon, right? The problem is that if that hits, the cannon whiffs, and you're not in a very good position, right? It is a high, so you can get down to, crushing blow, same as back 2. So be careful throwing it out. So again, it's something, there may be specific uses for it that I'm not aware of, but at least based on my loadouts, I honestly don't use standing 4 very much. It's a shame that there's so much pushback, or that +6 could actually be pretty fun to mess around with, but as it stands, not much going for standing 4, other than as an anti-air, if you ask me. Alright, so that covers just about all of his strings and normals, so just moving right along, let's go ahead and talk about just the remaining stuff he's got going on, his hop attacks, his throws, and his jumping attacks, right? So really, as far as throws go, forward and backward are almost identical. You get that, 15 frames of advantage and send them full screen. He does have his throw crushing blows. I can find those. Right, so if your opponent fails throw escape, he's got crushing blows on his forward and back throws. Right, so that's excellent. Like, RoboCop's kind of a throw machine. You're going to be throwing your opponent a whole lot. Especially if you take the command grab, obviously. You just lose access to your crushing blows. You don't lose access to your crushing blows, but if you take the command grab, you're probably going to be using that instead of normal throw, so you're not going to be getting as many throw crushing blows. But yeah, so forward throw and back throw are both going to leave you in basically identical situations, right? Full screen, +15, now your opponent has to guess if you're going to zone or not. All right. As far as hop attacks go, hop attack 3 has slightly more range than hop attack 2, but hop attack 2 is safer. All right, so hop attack 2 is -11 on block. Hop attack 3 is -13. So it's the difference between being safe and unsafe against some characters, right? So typically hop attack 2 is what you're going to want to go with, especially if like you're right up against your opponent's face and you're mixing them with back 3 or down 3, back 4. Doing all that mess. So hop 2 is where you want to be. As far as jumping attacks go, so as an anti-air, you want to use standing 1. Very quick 6 frame startup in that horizontal hitbox, right? So it's a fairly good anti-air if you read a throw. Or it also works really well against like Bionic Bounce Jackie when she's flying across the air at you, or Joker. It's a really good way to catch them out, and if you do, you get a nice little combo. whatever ender you want to throw on there. But yeah, just a 4-3-2 into whatever ender. All right. If you're going for jump in pressure, you want to go with jump in 2 because it has that kind of downward swipe. Right? That's really all about that's useful for. So jump 1 for anti-air, jump 2 for pressure. Both of those will get anti-aired very easily by most of the cast. So if someone is anti-airing you, you can start throwing out your big boot here, which is a little more difficult to anti-air. And of course, like all jump kicks in this game, you can cancel into a special, which I don't even know what specials this loadout has that I could cancel it to, whatever. And if it hits, the cancel will come out, and if it's blocked, the cancel won't come out, and you'll be safe, right? All right. Unfortunately, RoboCop's get-up attacks and flawless block attacks are very lackluster. So your up 3 is at least somewhat reliable. Your up 2 is absolute garbage. This is the same as your down 2, right? So that the hitbox on it is awful. It doesn't hit anything. It's just a really, really bad wake up, right? So usually with RoboCop, your best bet is going to be delayed wake ups because so many characters in this game can just utterly bully you on Oki, right? Because you don't have wake ups for the most part as RoboCop. So if you're against someone who is just right in your face, rushing you down, trying to mix you up, then up 3 is going to be all right. But usually delayed wake up is going to be better than going for either of those options. Which is very unfortunate. That also applies for your flawless block attacks. Uh, it's almost not worth flawless blocking with RoboCop with the up 2. You can flawless block up 3, and that'll hit way more often. There's just a lot of strings in this game that are flawless blockable, but RoboCop's whiffs. If you try to do like the flawless blockable launcher, the up 2, way too often that up 2 will whiff, and you'll get punished for flawless blocking your opponent, right? So just be aware that typically up 3 is going to be better than your up 2.